We got some teases about where God of War will go next after Ragnarok. Game director Eric Williams appeared on a couple of spoiler casts where he shared some very interesting Ragnarok development info that I will discuss here. But perhaps more interesting is that he also hinted at the fact that there are already clues in Ragnarok for the next potential mythology, and I am curious about your take on this as well. Ragnarok sold 5.1 million copies in the first week, so it's obvious that we get more God of War, and now we are one step closer to figuring out what that will look like. But there are spoilers for the entirety of God of War Ragnarok in this video, obviously, so come back later if you haven't finished the game yet. But if you are curious about what's next for God of War, then totally leave a like, subscribe for more videos on the series, and let's go. Before we get into some details on the ending of the game, and specifically things that happen after the ending, game director Eric Williams also mentioned a lot of interesting details about the game's opening and specifically the fight with Thor. The fact that he is left-handed was a very deliberate choice to throw your timing off, for instance, as pretty much all your other opponents are right-handed. And we almost didn't get that moment where Thor uses Mjolnir as a defibrillator to bring Kratos back to life because the game's engine caused a lot of issues for that particular moment. So pretty much as soon as Eric threatened to have it removed, someone came in to fix the problem, and now we have this amazing fake out death that I think is one of the more memorable moments in the game. And there is even some foreshadowing at moments much later in the game, such as the fact that Kratos tries to kill Thor by dropping the Spear of Tyr's statue on him, which is the weapon that eventually kills Thor in the end. After watching these interviews, I really got in the mood to play through the game a second time with all this knowledge. And that is true for the post-main story quests too, as there are a lot of secrets hidden by Sony Santa Monica in there. Apart from the fact that I wish more encounters were replayable, I really loved the post-game overall. There is a ton to do, it feels super high quality, especially the crater area in Vanaheim, and the characters just continue with their lives. Like, you can see what they are doing after that big ending, and well, as you might expect, this also teases some things regarding the future of the franchise.
You can't end in him say, you know, there's much to do, and then it's just like the game's over and then that world stops. So we wanted to have this like living, breathing post-game where you get to see little wrap-ups with characters and you get little hints of where they could go in the future. And, you know, even though it's the end of the Norse saga, we leave it open for maybe there are other things with other mythologies and whatnot. So we'll see where the future of Santa Monica goes.
And we should look at Tyr here in particular, and then I am of course talking about the real Tyr, who you can find in Niflheim during the Broken Prison side quest. This one starts close to the blacksmith. You'll have to head to the left here, and then by making your way through the prison, you will find Tyr as well as other bodies and people that Odin was using for his impersonations. Like, it was a really big shock when I found him there during this mission. I for sure didn't expect this, but actually it wasn't always the idea to have Odin be Tyr. This is something that only came up much later in development when they were trying to figure out a good way to explain how Odin would know about all of Kratos' plans. And just pointing to the ravens didn't really feel right, so then Eric came up with the idea to make Odin Tyr throughout the whole main story, while they first planned for Kratos and Atreus to rescue the actual Tyr. I personally love the twist, so I'm very happy they put it in, and it just fits Odin's character that he's always a step ahead and knows everything. It's also really cool to go back to older saves now, or simply replaying the game with this in mind, as you'll notice a lot more with the added context. When he asks Sindri where Tyr is, for instance, you get the response that he slept in the broom closet, which is actually the location Odin uses to teleport in and out. Tyr also calls Freya Frigg when they first meet, while the real Tyr just calls her Freya, and you can actually also see it thanks to the spelling of his name in the subtitles. Tyr is spelled with an accent over the Y, but when Odin is talking, the subtitles will say Tyr without the symbol. And after meeting the real Tyr in Niflheim, you do see the correct spelling when he talks. So now to the tease, because after finding the real Tyr in Niflheim during the Broken Prison side mission, you can find him appearing in a lot of the other realms too. And this is what Eric Williams said about that during the IGN spoiler cast.
You know, even though it's the end of the Norse saga, we leave it open for maybe there are other things with other mythologies and whatnot. So we'll see where the future of Santa Monica goes.
Now,
I mean, if you pay attention to Tyr, I mean, there's a reason why he does the 6 animations that he does at the end of the game.
I'm sorry, say that again?
So again, he is referring to the different realms where you can find Tyr. I will share the locations in a moment as well as what it could mean, because he is definitely teasing something here.
So there's like 6 different places he is. But,
Okay, so he's in
but
six.
But he's He does very specific animations.
Yes.
So may have seen that he's been traveling the world. I'm gonna get in trouble here in a minute.
And then the conversation goes on about Tyr in general, but yeah, the fact that Eric says that he might get in trouble here also hints that there is definitely something going on. So after completing the Broken Prison questline, you can find Tyr in multiple locations. He's in Helheim, close to Hraesvelgr, who you can reach by going left from the realm travel door and then left up this ledge again, and he also shows up in Freyr's camp in Vanaheim. You can find him near the watchtower in Svartalfheim, next to the gong you used to wake up the Lungbakker, and in Alfheim he's on a cliff over here on the map, very close to where you find the Skadi's Edge runic attack. On the Lake of Nine in Midgard you can find him on this cliff over here on the map, and finally you can also find Tyr meditating at the Spark of Creation in Muspelheim. And like Eric hinted at, there is actually a reason that he is doing these specific animations and poses. So I did some digging because I actually recognized one of the poses he was doing, specifically the one in Svartalfheim. This is actually how you're taught to sit during judo classes, and I know that judo is a modern martial art, but its roots go of course way further back. So it still got me thinking more about the other poses as well. While Tyr is also seated at the Spark of Creation, his pose here actually looks very similar to the Sukhasana pose from yoga, another neutral meditative position. In Helheim he's doing an exercise I don't recognize. It kind of reminds me of a sun salutation, which is also something from yoga, but I'm pretty sure it's something else. And then there's this almost dancing motion he does in Vanaheim, which I'm not 100% sure on either, but I think this originates from Tai Chi. So it really looks like Tyr has been learning a lot from Asian meditation during his travels around the world. And the fact that in the case of both Tai Chi and Judo, the meditative part is connected to self-defense and martial arts is of course a really interesting evolution for a God of War. I also know that in Midgard, Tyr is looking pensively into the sky, but if you look at the compass, you'll see he is exactly facing the north. And later, when you meet him in Alfheim, he's turned directly towards the south. Now, there are many meanings behind the 4 cardinal directions, not sure which one applies here, but it is interesting and I definitely think it's important, so your theories are more than welcome here. So what does that all lead to? Well, at the very least, I think we can put 2 and 2 together when considering that Eric Williams hints that these animations tease the next mythology. With Judo originating in Japan, Tai Chi in China, and Yoga in India, it has to be something set in Asia. But of course, a God of War game needs an exciting pantheon to tell its story, so we need to look at some prominent religions that find their origins in Asia. Which to my knowledge are Buddhism, Shintoism, and Hinduism. And when it comes down to those 3, I think one of them is way more likely than the others. Because for starters, Buddhism technically only has one god, and many who practice this religion don't see the Buddha as a god or their belief in his teachings as a religion. Hinduism, on the other hand, has a lot of different deities, the most well-known being Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, and a rich mythology full of stories that will make even Mimir's head spin. So in my head, this is a great setting for a new chapter in the God of War saga, just like the Norse mythology opened up a lot of new possibilities for the franchise as well. And of course, Japanese mythology or Shintoism is always an option for a setting as well, but considering the fact that Sony already has Ghost of Tsushima and AC Red is also looming on the horizon, I think it would be way cooler if they tried something new and unique. Which goes against a lot of expectations, because the setting I think has been speculated about the most is the Egyptian pantheon, but with Ragnarok, Santa Monica has proved once again that they like to go against what people expect while still delivering something amazing. Williams touched on that topic, stating it as one of the reasons that they ended up not giving the player Mjolnir, for instance, even after Thor's defeat. Because it was expected and therefore it wouldn't feel new and fresh anymore. Plus, the Leviathan axe was designed to be a counter to that weapon, so narratively it also made very little sense for Kratos to wield both. I for one am very glad with what we did get, and I also very much believe that we haven't seen the last of Mjolnir yet. And Jordan agrees with me, he actually has a theory about that which we'll cover in a future video. Again, your theories on the future of the franchise are more than welcome in the comments. Subscribe for way more God of War Ragnarok videos, as we got a lot more content coming your way, and of course leave a like if you enjoyed this one. If you want, you can watch our previous video on all runic attacks in the game by clicking on the screen. I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.